The Speaking of Cults podcast is presented solely for general informational, educational, and entertainment purposes. The use of information on this podcast or materials linked from it is at the user's own risk. The views, information, or opinions expressed by the host and guests are solely those of the individuals involved and do not constitute medical or other professional advice. Hello, and welcome to the Speaking of Cults podcast. This is Chris Shelton, your host. Thank you very much for joining me again this week. I am joining Geoff Levin, and he is a former Scientologist, artist, musician, and someone who has escaped Scientology and made a feature-length film documentary with him and his brother about all that. And we're going to talk about that today because that film is being released very, very shortly. And so in anticipation of that, we're putting this out. So Geoff, hi, welcome to my show.
Hello. And so it's called Brothers Broken. Mm-hmm. And Geoff and Rob Levin. And my brother was very helpful in supporting me in making this film.
I'll bet. It's quite a thing. I remember seeing some bits of it earlier when we talked about this, I think a while back actually, and now it's actually finally coming out. It was at Film Festival. That's right. We talked about it when it was being shown at a festival.
That's right. Yeah, it did some good festivals, Cinequest and Dances with Films in New York City.
Great.
Another Hole in the Head in San Francisco, where it was screened. So I was really pleased that we did get some attention with it and support. So that was good. And I learned a lot about festivals.
I'll bet.
The whole thing in itself. But
yeah.
So the film was, you could say, selfish on my part. Even though it's a huge amount of work, I could either have spent the money on therapy for 6 years, or I could make the film. So instead, I'm with Kaiser, so I get to do therapy at a very reasonable price, and it's really helped. By the way, it's helped me a lot because I have no bugaboos regarding the kind of therapy that now exists. It's completely different than when Hubbard was like ragging about the evil psychiatrists.
It very much is.
Yeah, they were all evil.
According to... Oh. Well, Scientology has some funny ideas about that, but I guess in a way you could also, put this under the making this film as a form of art therapy.
Well, that's a discussion for another time with you, which we will, because that's true. I mean, in expressing your story, and I'm a big proponent of tell your story. However you can do it, whether it's with a podcast written down, a series of videos, or a video. It's cheap enough now, anybody can do it. And so I saw that as a motive. Okay, the other thing was I wanted to do something with my brother. We had been part of the film and the stories. We were separated for 28 years. Mm-hmm. Because he left Scientology and I didn't.
Right.
And I'll have to say it was not his decision.
Right. Well, let's go ahead and give the audience a little recap on earlier in time. Years ago, you and I have done a very extensive walkthrough of your story. And that was years ago. So let's go ahead and tell the audience now, just sort of a Reader's Digest version, but what was basically your experience with Scientology?
I really got turned on to it because we're talking 1963 by a guy named Rick Melrose. I don't know if you know who he is, but he was a big supporter, big mucky muck in the Bay Area for Scientology, and he had a mission, I think. And Rick Melrose, He was good buddies with David Nelson, the musician, who was one of the founders of the New Riders of the Purple Sage. I met David during the folk period in 1963, and one day, and he became my mentor because he was a little bit older than me. Great musician, David, and we were in a bluegrass band together, and with Jerry Garcia. I think some people know who he is.
I might have heard that name once or twice.
Okay, so I got it.
Grateful Dead. Hello, anybody?
Well, that's a whole nother story because I watched that whole thing take place because I was there with my own band. But anyway, so David and Rick, I used to hang out with them and smoke pot.
Of course, it was the Bay Area and it was the 60s. Of course you did.
Yeah. And this was before anybody really knew about it, right? I mean, it was very underground with a few musicians. And they got me one night and they started in on proselytizing Scientology while I'm getting stoned.
Of course.
And they told me that this information, and it made sense. If you can believe that somebody who's stoned can actually be cognitive, I was. And they were telling me about the Thetan, which is the soul. And they gave me this thing that we have these innate abilities that we've lost and that we're going to regain them through Scientology.
Mm-hmm.
And it stuck with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I got the Dianetics book shortly after that. However, and this is an interesting story because I haven't told this. My mom's friend was a psychiatrist, she was a heavy-duty psychologist. Really good friends. And so one day I'm over at their house because we did family stuff all the time, right? And I mentioned, I have this Dianetics book. I'm in college, right? And I mentioned it to the psychologist. She went off. She completely exploded. Fraud, charlatan. He's so in a sense.
In other words, calling Hubbard exactly what he was.
He was, yeah.
Trying to warn you about it.
Right. She tried, but it was explosive.
Right, because she was so upset about it.
However, the but is I put the book away and I didn't do anything with it. And so cut to 5 years later, 1968, I have my band. We're having a hit record, but we're having problems in the band personality-wise. And one of the members, Albert Rabisi, who's still in, unfortunately, he comes into our rehearsal and he says, I saw a bumper sticker and it said, find out about Scientology. That was a big thing then, bumper stickers, right?
Right, that's right. That's right.
It had a phone number and it went boink and I was ready.
Right.
Because we needed a solution to getting along. So
I see, because there was interpersonal conflict within the band.
Within the band, that's
and
right.
So Al comes along and goes, "Oh yeah, this Scientology stuff will deal with all that." And
well, he didn't know about it, but he just said, "Maybe this is the answer."
Maybe this is the answer. Okay.
We were to do transcendental meditation, which would have been much smarter, by the way. Would have saved me about $1 million. And
it would have saved you a lot of money, that's for sure. TM doesn't cost anywhere near as much as Scientology does. It ends up in a similarly weird place, but you got to work at it in TM to get to that high level, really wacko place. A lot of people just do some meditation every day, and it's no big deal,
Exactly, and it doesn't quite have the control.
That's right.
It's not near what.
That's right. Nobody's going to be chasing you up if you were not exactly on time for your appointment, going to the ethics officer if you don't do exactly 10 hums or whatever it is you're supposed to do. So it's a little different there. Yeah, I know.
So anyway, I was like, right away, let's go down there. When I found out there was a local in Santa Clara, we were in San Jose. Santa Clara is the county, and went right down there, and that was it.
Yep.
An
Yep.
introduction lecturer, a good lecturer. He was good, and I was sold. Boom.
Yeah. Boom. You were on.
And
Wow.
so
Did you ever join staff?
I joined the Sea Org.
You joined the Sea Org. You went right to Sea Org.
Well, that's a whole other story, and we're just kind of bringing an update. I just want to kind of go. That was
Yeah.
1968,
Yep.
and the band was having a hit record.
Yep.
We weren't going to have one. We were having it,
Hmm.
and it destroyed the band. So that's my first positive experience with Scientology, was destroyed the band because we kicked out the two members that were the frontmen of the group, that were the soul of the group.
Hmm.
I was the producer and the founder of the group, but they were the singers.
Right.
They were Christian, and neither one of them they tried, but they weren't going for it.
Right.
So, and we were taught that any kind of pushback or quotes surreptitious, covert kind of resistance meant that they were bad people.
Jesus. Jesus. So it was a
Oh,
little bit more black and white than it is now as far as us versus theming people at the lower levels. Now they're a little bit more, they try to pretend to be a little bit more tolerant about things at the lower levels. But it sounds like you were having like some ultimatums issued.
we were being directed by the mission people and consulted,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and, and we tagged
Got to
one
get
of them.
rid of those guys. Got to get rid of those
Yeah,
SPs.
well, that was our thought process at
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
people, and if your subscribers and listeners know what an SP is, suppressive person, the label means they're really dangerous.
Yeah. Antisocial.
Anti-
Suppressive person is the label Scientology gives to somebody if they are considered an enemy of the church. You
right.
don't have to do, there have been people who have committed criminal acts and gone to jail who have not been declared suppressive by Scientology because their criminal acts weren't an attack against Scientology. You have to attack Scientology for the church to get that upset with you. And then,
Yeah,
or to just disagree with the church. And nope, you're a bad person, obviously. And so, we're not only going to not have you around, we're going to actually tell all of our members to avoid you and not connect with you and not talk to you and not relate to you in any way because we're calling you a suppressive person. That's basically the rundown on
right.
it. Yeah. Yeah.
So that occurred, and at the same time, my own demise really started, but I couldn't even recognize it. My first bout of depression occurred when I did the higher levels. It actually turned into a form of depression. Uh,
Wow.
but the word depression is not used in Scientology, and the recognition that it's a real situation is not discussed at all. So
No, it's
it,
completely denied. And if you try to bring that kind of language into Scientology, they'll really they will adjust your head. They don't want to
oh,
hear it. They don't believe in chemical imbalances in your brain and all that kind of stuff. They don't think that that has any legitimacy at all. And it's always been that way in Scientology because that's how L. Ron Hubbard talks about it.
yeah. So basically, I left the band 1969 and went straight, but quickly, I'll just say the band joined the Sea Org. The whole,
Okay.
but
Okay.
we had a new singer, and he just followed along because he didn't care either way, but he followed along, and then at a certain point, I just said I can't do this anymore. As soon as we joined Scientology, the balance of power had changed in the band. I made
Mm,
I started making mistakes. I was doing everything right, really. We didn't get to a hit record by me doing things wrong.
right.
And as the leader, and then I abdicated it to my brother, and at that point, it just wasn't going.
Now, let me ask you, just since we are kind of spending a bit more time on this, and I am curious about it I think the audience will be curious about it. You get a hit record, and this is, we see one hit wonders all the time, or we see people who make it big and then, blow up, right? And your case, is different because, you lose this, Scientology's involved. It's a bit of a joker in the deck. And, so I'm not trying to paint your situation as typical, obviously, but yet the idea of, making it big and suddenly there's all these new pressures or new situations. What can you talk about that a little bit? Just because you said the band blew up, there were all these problems. What could you describe what was happening?
Well, I started taking services right away,
Mm-hmm.
doing the course, and then studying the ethics policies, which teach you about, and reading books about it. Ruth Minshall wrote a book that got about the emotional tone scale, which gives you a complete layout of all emotions.
Right. How to Choose Your People was the name of that book.
Yeah, I just
I
didn't
read that
remember.
as a child. Thought I had a
Wow,
leg up on other people
wow,
because I
there
knew
you
the
go.
emotions.
Yes. So
Yeah.
that was very, very attractive to me.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that it was bringing me great wisdom very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no doubt that the band wouldn't have stayed together if we hadn't joined Scientology. We probably would have found another good song and kept releasing singles till we had a second hit.
So you think you're looking back on this going, yeah, it was Scientology that blew us up.
Oh, not any doubt.
Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah. Okay, I
also,
just wanted to clarify because
no,
there's
that's
also, I was sort of saying, right? There's also sort of the pressure of having a hit. And then, these extra, the producers and the record labels and all the things, I mean, I imagine there's some pressure there, but that wasn't the part that was actually messing you guys up. It was
no,
Scientology.
what was messing us up, which was normal stuff. A bunch of kids and somebody who was about 3 years older than them, who was their leader.
Right, right, right,
And
right. I get it. Yeah. But
and our
Scientology certainly just came in like a nuclear bomb and just blew the whole thing up.
and our manager, we had a good. He was good. He did his work. He was the program director for one of the big rock stations, KLIV, in San Jose. He was a good guy, Captain
Hmm.
Mikey. He was a very good guy. We would have just gone along, probably continued to smoke a little pot. Few people, I drop a little bit of acid, but I was done with acid, regardless of Scientology.
Hmm.
And we would have kept working on. We would have stayed with the record label that we were with, which was not a small label, Capitol Records.
Hmm.
And we would have developed uh, better writing skills. We had one of the guy we kicked out was the best songwriter in the group. The guy we kicked out. His name was Larry Norman. For that name, for a lot of Christians, is a very dynamic name because Larry started the Christian rock movement for real.
Damn.
And
Damn.
so he gets kicked out.
And
He
he goes in a whole new direction.
Well, but it was his direction because he was always
Yeah.
Christian. But he would have done that regardless. That's my view. But the talents
Yeah.
coalesced. We were very, if you looked at the band, it was very innovative in a certain way. We were kind of a showy band in a very funny way. And that came from things that I loved to do, and everybody went along with it. But I think I'm going to go into detail because the other thing that killed it was killing me. I
Hmm.
did I did the what they're called the grades.
Hmm.
These are for improving your life, and this is prior to any of the upper levels.
Right, right. It's called the lower level auditing. It's the stuff that gets you up to the level of clear, which is about halfway up the Scientology
Right.
ladder of progress. Yeah, is basically how it works. And this auditing is you sit in a room and there's an auditor and there's an e-meter and you get asked a lot of questions and look at a
Oh,
lot of stuff in your life. And it just
yes.
takes hours and hours of going through these processes or these routines. And that's Scientology auditing in a nutshell. I mean, there's a lot of specifics to it, but that's basically what he was doing.
Well, yeah, that is to deal with your present life
Yep.
so you can do with your past lives later.
Yeah.
But
Well, I had a lot of past life stuff come up on my grades, so I'm I guess it
well,
depends on I guess it
well,
depends on your experience.
you're, we, if we're getting into detail, but if we're going to, I
No, I
did.
actually wanted to kind of move step forward a little faster, actually, but since you said that, I had to throw that out there
No,
because
no,
the
no, no,
past
no.
life stuff could come up on day one for you in Scientology. Some people it does, and then it's like they're hooked on that. So it's a little bit of a different experience for everybody, I
It did
guess.
come up for me very quickly within the grades.
Yeah,
And,
nice.
and but what also came up from the grades was my self-esteem. It completely trashed it.
Oh boy,
I was a
wow.
bad person. I'd done bad things. I was tough on the other band members.
Oh, wow.
And so that's what led to me dropping my uh, position as a leader of the group. And I was really the only one qualified to do it. I had some administrative skills. This all prior to Scientology, and I think I had the kind of innate skill sets that worked to be the leader, and
Right,
I abdicated that. I
right.
Because I thought I was a bad person. So the end result for all of you people who want to do the grades, the lower grades of Scientology, my end result was low self-esteem and dropping something that was really, really important, including my purpose. I wanted to have a hit record, and I was just on the verge of doing it. And I basically, by joining Scientology, I dropped my responsibility.
Mm, mm.
So,
Did you
so
see, let me just ask you this and
yeah,
then we can step forward on the story
yeah, yeah.
because I know there's years and years and so many details and I did want to get the Reader's Digest version of this and we're already kind of blowing that. But
No,
let's see if we can speed this up a little bit. But let me ask you one thing here real fast, right? Which is, did you know when it was happening? Did you have, even in the back of the mind, any inkling of, this Scientology stuff is real. Wow, this is bad. I should get away from this.
the quick answer is
Yeah.
no.
I didn't think so, and that's why I asked, because
And the
there was
reason,
never even any idea, because it seemed like the answer, the solution,
yeah,
kept putting itself there as, no, no, you just need to do more of this. You just need to do more
yeah.
of this.
It's, and
Yeah.
and the carrot, real quick, it's really simple. I
Hmm.
saw if I wanted to continue, I was going to get new abilities and I was going to achieve immortality as a being.
Right. And
And
that's a
memory,
big carrot. That's
it
a,
was huge for me. And so
yeah.
that's where it was. So
Yep.
that's
Makes sense. Makes sense. Now okay, so faster than we've been doing. Let's go
yeah.
ahead and talk briefly about your Sea Org experience and your time at CC and stuff. Just give a little rundown on the 70s and your track with that, because you get into the 60s, your band blows up, you get rid of members on purpose, the thing implodes, they join the Sea Org. So what's your path in this?
Well, we all joined the Sea Org as a band,
Okay.
1969 through Yvonne Gillum. Um, and we established Celebrity Center with Yvonne. We were the
Got
first
it.
one
Great.
as celebrities to do it. So
Yep.
I
This is 69, 70 time period.
1969, November.
69. Yep.
November I leave or September I leave Scientology, or November. Um, and I immediately moved down to Alvarado Street, find a place, and I joined staff with Yvonne as a staff member.
Okay. And this is the very new Celebrity Center International, which is now still there in Hollywood.
But it was on 8th Street then.
Yep. Now it's on Franklin or something, I think.
Yeah, on Franklin. But anyway, I was the third Sea Org staff member there.
Wow. Founding member.
Founding member. I don't think I should be proud of that.
Not particularly, actually. And Yvonne has a lot to answer for, even if she was the nicest person in Scientology ever.
Oh yeah, she does, and I think she would answer for it if she was around.
I think so too.
So anyway, so I was there for 6 months.
Yep.
And at the same time, I was meeting these wonderful artists. David Carradine came down there and performed. That's where I met Jeffrey Lewis, the actor. Mm-hmm. I met Don Simpson, the big film producer, Top Gun. Mm-hmm. He was around there. I briefly met Candice Bergen. She didn't stay. She's got smart. She just thought I knew it. But she was out. And a bunch of other artists. And then I started performing to make money. I was taking off on the weekends and performing with this young violinist or violist, David Campbell. And we were busking in Westwood and making money.
Wow.
So, which was okay with Yvonne. She was like, okay. But I also built the theater for them. I put the lights in, I put the sound in, and I even ran the theater for a little while, but that was not what I wanted to do. So I wore many different hats, financed different things, but not for long. And eventually, 6 months I left. Yvonne was okay with it because I was starting to work with this artist, Jimmy Spheris, recording artist. And that's what I ended up doing. I just left, no routing out, no nothing, no ethics, nothing.
It was a looser time in the 70s for sure. Yeah. Very, very different. And under Yvonne, as a Sea Org member, as a public Scientologist, I think I've heard enough stories now between you and Mitch and so many other people that I get the idea that she was human first, Scientologist second in a lot of ways. Not every way. Yeah. And certainly not with her own family, but in terms of how she dealt with other people, very compassionate, very understanding, very taking the person for who they are in front of her, not trying to make them into something else. And judging them accordingly, which is pretty much how most Scientologists are. So she really stood out as somebody different in all of this, you know.
She definitely was. And I would consider that she, if you want to talk about the weight of responsibility, without her, I think Hubbard would have probably just hobbled along and crashed and burned.
Yeah. I agree. I think that she was one of the key principal figures in Scientology's history that has been since erased from that history as far as Scientology is concerned. But we know people like Yvonne, people like Mary Sue, people like Heber Jensch. I mean, these were pivotal figures. Pivotal.
Yeah, very, very much so. And Heber and I were buddies. I played with him. I performed.
That's right. Because without Yvonne, you don't get John Travolta.
No.
Without Yvonne, you don't get Tom Cruise. Without Yvonne, you don't get any of the celebrities, really. There's just a handful that were involved before Celebrity Center became a thing. She was not only filling a niche, she was creating it. And she did that. And Hubbard didn't come up with that idea. She did. And she's the one who actually went and made that happen. So I agree with you. I think that she was absolutely pivotal in Scientology's history, even if not one single Scientologist in the church now knows her name.
I know. That's a whole topic. We can get into it when we deal with the art series.
Just to say, just to throw it out there. But as far as your story, so you leave the Sea Org after 6 months, you go back into working, but then you ended up in the Sea Org or on the ship or something.
Because unresolved situation, and I always felt quotes guilty for it, not routing out, but I was scared because I was building up more and more phobias, right? Which I think you do when you're in Scientology.
Yeah,
And they don't even use the word phobia,
that's
but
right.
you build them up, let me tell you. Um, and so what happened is I had, or me and my band, no, it was me. I got this guy named Dan Arbach into Scientology. He was an engineer. I mean, a real engineer,
Mm-hmm.
electrical.
Mm-hmm.
And then he ended up moving and going to the ship. And he is the man responsible for restoring all of the tapes.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Okay. You mean it wasn't L. Ron Hubbard inventing clear sound that?
And give
Sorry, I
you.
just had to push your buttons on that one. Okay, so Dan Arbuckle comes in and restores the tapes. That's cool. So
So
what were you doing?
okay, let me quickly say.
Oh,
So
sure.
on the ship was really in 1974. The ship was in 73. They were really having public representation problems, publicity problems in the Mediterranean, around Spain, around Portugal, but nobody knew where they were. But they were having these problems. Hubbard got the bright idea, or he probably got it from somebody else. Why don't we put a band together? There were a lot of musicians on the Apollo. Let's put a band together, and they'll go out and do um, hospitals, veterans um, administration facilities, and things to help and give a good sense of publicity, positive publicity. So they
Oh,
create.
that's a new bit for me on that. I didn't realize hospitals and
Oh yeah,
humanitarian things were
it
part of
was
the
all
pitch
human.
on that.
It was all about humanitarian. There was no.
I thought it was just entertainment stuff for the port. I
Uh,
didn't
uh,
realize it was humanitarian
no,
stuff.
it was mostly humanitarian.
How
They
interesting. How interesting.
they would do a few concerts, just concerts, but it was really about um, trying to create good publicity for the ship
Right.
because
That's new.
people.
I did not know that. Thanks for sharing that.
So they had the one band, the Apollo Stars,
Hmm.
were going out and they were getting good response. They had horns. It was like a big band, three horn players I think, and a full keyboard, guitar, bass, drums, and dancers. They had
Wow.
dancers,
That's right. That's right.
and so
Right.
and then he said, I think it was Hubbard might have decided because he grew. So why don't we do a different kind of band too? So we have more bands going out. And so they decided, I think it was Dan that actually, it wasn't Hubbard, it was Dan said, why don't you do a more folk? Folk is still really popular. Why don't you do something more folk country, you know, Western? And so Hubbard didn't know what he was doing, but Dan did. So guess what Dan did? Thank you, Dan. He tells Hubbard, we need, he thought I was still in the Sea Org because nobody'd ever declared me or put out a goldenrod, which is the bulletin that says that you're officially out.
Right.
So he has Hubbard, or Hubbard tells the messengers, send it in my name. So they send it to Celebrity Center. I get a call from somebody at Celebrity Center. You have a telex here. Didn't tell me what it was. And so the,
Wow. The old
yeah,
man himself telexing you directly. That must have been a moment.
yeah, it was, but it was not really him. It was Dan who did it.
Well, of course, but you didn't know that at the time.
No, I didn't know that. And so I I was kind of vacillating. Nothing. I was working with Jimmy Spheris. He was a Scientologist, a recording artist. We're getting ready to do another album, but I still had this purpose. And so, and secondarily, I had this romantic thing. I had met this messenger, right? And nothing really happened, but I was kind of smitten with her.
Mm.
And she was on leave, and I saw her for a few days, and then she went back, and then we would write each other. And so there was that too, because she was
Got it.
there.
Got it.
So I ended up dropping everything, selling my car. I had friends. I told my friend, "Can you sell my car?" I had a VW Bus Classic, and I sold everything. What I had, I brought my amp, my speaker, and my guitar. Two guitars, an acoustic and electric. That was it. That was for me. I was gone. I was dedicated. I was going to be on the ship and in the Sea Org forever.
And how long did forever last?
6 months.
Yeah. Yeah. So that came and went. Now again, we're not going to go, all the details. We have covered a lot of this in the past, right? So you all can check out our earlier shows on this. We really did go into a lot of detail. But now I'm really just trying to set this up in terms of the film because you're
Yeah, yeah,
obviously at
yeah,
this
yeah.
point you're going off to the Sea Org. Your brother is not. Where has your brother been during all of this?
Well, we had a riff when I left the band. We had a real riff.
Okay. So at that point, you guys were Splitsville.
Yeah, we split,
Okay.
and I was pissed at him, and he was
Yeah.
pissed at
Yeah.
me. And
Okay.
so that didn't last very long because what happened is that in I'm pretty sure it was in one of the lower auditing things,
Hmm.
therapy things. I actually had this epiphany, and whether it's true or not, I'm not sure. It sounded kind of true because there's a few things that I know I dealt with that were true, that
Hmm.
were addressed when I was using Scientology.
Sure.
Anyway, I looked at it and it reconciled my animosity toward my brother that I had from a little boy. I had it from when he was born.
Wow.
It reconciled it, and I got back together with him. He had a new band, and we became buddies again.
Nice.
And but then I take off, 1974,
Right.
and he didn't have anything to say about it. It's like, okay, cool, but at least we were
Back
talking,
in
and
touch.
that's yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, I come back, and I have to start my life over, kind of.
Yeah.
And
Took a little
the nice
6 month
thing,
hiatus from everything.
the nice thing is that I knew that I was no longer going to be in the Sea Org ever again.
Right.
I knew that was not for me. The amount of military BS and antisocial personalities in it was outrageous.
I'll bet it was. I'll bet it was, especially on those boats.
Oh, on the
It was
podium.
just, Hubbard was, it was just contagion of hysteria on that boat. On
Yeah,
that fleet of boats, I guess I should say, because Hubbard had a little flotilla, he liked to call it, right? He had 4 or 5
yeah,
boats.
really just the big boat.
Yeah,
That
it was really just the big one.
all.
But Hubbard was a real taskmaster on that thing, He was the guy in charge.
Oh yeah, no, he was in his element. He was in his element when he was doing. The one thing I have to say about Hubbard, and I understand why, when he was with the musicians, he actually de-stressed.
Sure,
It was his
sure.
one time where he could have fun,
Yeah,
and he did.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um,
No, you don't have to be, even world-class bastards can enjoy music. And,
they, yeah,
and Hubbard did enjoy music. He considered himself a, what was baritone speaker or singer and thought that he had probably a bit more skill than he had, I think, but he did appreciate music. He really, really did.
oh yeah, he did, and he had a respect for me that never went away, even when
Hmm.
I left.
Nice.
And that reinforced, for me at least, that there was some goodness there. I wish he had just told me just F off and you're a scumbag. And because then I probably would have left earlier. But he didn't do that. He didn't do
Right,
that.
right.
Um, anyway, so then from that point on, um, I just had to recover, and I started on my composing career at that point because I built a recording studio. I came back, built because I was always into recording, even when I was a teenager. I bought my first tape recorder when I was 16, I think. And so I started that, and then I was in touch with my brother, and that was all cool. I'd go out and visit his band. I'd sit in with his band. It was really fun. It was a great band. They played at Marina Del Rey. They had a really good club gigs that they would do. This is the time everybody was dancing and disco was going crazy. And the Bee Gees and
Disco
Steno.
Inferno.
Yeah, all of that stuff was incredible. And so I loved R&B. I mean, my background was a lot of different styles.
Sure.
And so everything seemed to be moving along. Um, and then, I mean, I got married in 78, I think it was. And that didn't go well, which it wouldn't because we were both Scientologists. It just didn't work.
Right. Had you gone back after leaving and doing your studio setup and watching your brother and doing these things through the years in the 70s, had you gone back into churches to do more services?
Oh yeah, no, I
Yeah.
did. It took me a year to pay off the debt that you owe for all the
Yep.
services that they gave you. Mostly
Yep.
I had paid for things, but I had some service. I think I figured it out. In today's money, I think it was, I'm not sure, it was like $11,000. So
Jesus.
that's 1974. You could buy a house for that or put a down payment. Oh, almost buy a house for that.
Wow.
So I think in today's money is, I don't know, 80 to $90,000 that I paid back.
Jesus. What a ripoff.
I know. Well,
Yeah.
I wanted it done. I did it,
Yep.
and
Of course.
I did it quickly because I wanted to be back.
Right.
So I was doing services. I did the very first purification rundown, which is their detox program. I was
Right.
right at the beginning of that.
The old sweat program.
Because I did the sweat program, then I did the very first purif in LA,
Right. Right.
which
Wow.
was really weird. That's a whole other story.
My
Uh,
folks were there too. For all I know, you all were in the same sauna. They would go to a health food store. There was some sauna in the back, and they were
oh wow.
that's where they were doing their sweat out.
Well, that's
Anyway, it
funny.
was a ridiculous time.
Anyway, so and then things were. I was seeing my brother not be so dedicated anymore.
Mm.
84, it came to a head. He um, Miscavige and Norman Starkey and Ray Midoff. This was after Hubbard, or Hubbard was kind of gone, and so they
Hmm.
were taking over.
Hmm.
I think he was still alive, but he was just barely, and so it was
Yeah,
like,
he didn't die till January 86.
yeah. So, but the new regime was coming in.
Oh yeah, they had basically Miscavige was basically running things from about 1982 forward, roughly. I know there's a lot of ins and outs
Yeah.
and this and that, but basically kind of running things. Yeah.
So the new regime was coming in, and my brother hosted. This is an interesting story that he tells, but I know it's true. I was there. Um, Hosted because of a really nice house, upscale. You know, he was making millions of dollars at the time with his clothing company and doing really well as a businessman. So we hosted all the celebrities to introduce David Miscavige, Ray Madoff, Norman Starkey. Those were the three big ones. And so, but he had an ulterior motive. He wanted to get Miscavige. He had inside information that no one else had because he was friendly with someone who had left the SO who was very inside. So that person had given him the truth. He was already skeptical because he'd gone to the Flag Land Base, to Clearwater, and
Mm-hmm.
what he saw there in 1980 really turned him off.
I'll bet. It was a rough time. And the executives in Scientology, just as one data point, there's a lot of reasons Scientology was a horrible place in 1980. Just one of the reasons being that the executives were specifically being trained at that time, especially at Flag, to be the most ruthless motherfuckers you have ever had anything to do with. I'm just being completely obscene about it because that's how they were. They would shout obscenities at their staff members and scream and yell and pound and throw books around and demand production at any cost and this kind of
Yeah,
thing. And it was real extremist nonsense. And they were being trained to be that way. So it's
yeah,
no, so just that alone, there's no question in my mind why your brother would have gone to Flag and been like, what the hell is this? You know?
exactly. I didn't see it that way, but he did.
Yeah.
Um, and he was more clear-minded because he was less involved than I was.
Yeah.
And so in 84, it was prior to that, yeah, somewhere around late 83, 80, we had this event, the coming out, and he gets Miscavige in a side room, just him and Miscavige, and Miscavige at the time's kind of shaky. He's just starting to find his legs.
Yep.
And Rob's a big financial celebrity, businessman, successful. So he's sure, you want to talk? Great. My brother asked him a few key questions that he knew the answers to.
Mm.
And
Mm.
Miscavige lied, barefaced lied to him. And that
Yeah.
was it for my brother. He was like, okay, I'm out of here.
Yep.
And
That was it.
so then, shortly after that, when it came over, and he sat me down and started just saying, he's a little bit emotional about it, but just saying, here's what I found out, and here's what has been said by the person. And I knew that person. I didn't think she was totally credible at the time. She was, but I didn't think that. And I just thought that he had crimes.
And why did you think that?
I knew some stuff that he had done at the time, and I'm not going to get into it, but they could have been considered that way.
Oh no, I'm sure. I'm just wondering why you jumped to that conclusion
Well, the
to
answer is
nullify his statements to you.
because he was attacking Scientology.
Bingo. So you can't have the attack, so you have to nullify it. Oh, he's a criminal, right? It's called ad hominem. It's a
And it's
logical
so
fallacy.
easy to find those things if you really look for them
That's right.
within your mind that they're that way. So
Yep.
I thought that about my brother, and it wasn't true really, but it's like you had to stretch,
Right.
uh, and so that was it. Um, I said I was pretty clear to him, no, we're not. I'm not going to talk to you, and that was it. And then I was getting services at the advanced organization in Los Angeles, the blue buildings, around that time, and it came up, and they said you need to officially call your brother and let him know you're going to disconnect from him. You're going to shun him. They call
Yep.
it disconnection in Scientology. So I did. In those days, I got on a payphone in the advanced organization. I tell my brother, I'm sorry, but I'm not talking to you anymore. You want to change, or then I will. That's fine. Let me know. Other than that, I'm done.
Right.
So,
Right.
and I didn't really talk to him. I mean, in the movie, and you can see it in the movie, we did come back together as a band. Um, so I was talking to him briefly during that time, but that's a whole story. Yeah, you need to watch the movie to see.
Exactly. I'm going to actually leave the audience here today, uh, excuse me, in a little bit of a mystery because we're going so far in the story, but actually I'm going to cut it off. I'm going to obviously with Geoff here, but we're not going to tell you the whole ending. We are going to spoil it in terms of what Geoff just said that there were some other connections and then there is a happy ending here, but we want you to see the movie.
Yeah,
So really all of this has kind of been set up for that. And so
I mean,
yeah,
if you're watching us, will make the movie richer
yes.
because given the details, because there's so much to cover in the movie. It covers us from being born to to the end result of the
Right.
movie.
Right.
Um,
Exactly.
so it
Well,
was
I think it's a great story. I mean, I really do. I just think your whole, sort of arc of this is really quite an incredible story. In and out of Scientology and the Sea Org and then your brother's situation and despite the fact that there's depression and despite the fact that Scientology is making you worse, you just kept sticking with it and until finally, there's this moment where it's like, oh, wait a second, this has been the problem the whole time.
yeah, yeah.
But coming to that is such a journey.
Well, I feel very grateful for where I am right now,
Yeah.
and I feel that I had to be an advocate for this story, and I've been supportive of a lot of the podcasters, bloggers that I felt really strongly were doing a great job, like you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Because you and Tony and Mike in particular were my first exposures. John Atack, not directly so much, but just the things that he put out that were so informative.
Yeah.
They all really helped me to understand what was going on with myself and what I didn't know, you know.
Yeah.
So I've been supportive of that. But my film, I feel like if you're familiar with the 12-step program, which Hubbard ripped off in many ways, he pulled out of, you know, AA 12 steps. Um,
Sure.
um, I felt I was making amends to do the movie
Okay.
and everything else that I would do, speaking out, all the different things that I've done. But the movie really, to me, is my feeling that I can move on.
Right. Exactly. Here it is. That's what happened. Close the door on it now, right? Be able to move on from it. I hear you so totally. I hear you on that. And
Cool.
I think that's awesome. I think that's awesome that you've done these things. I think it's awesome that you've put this together and that you've reached this place where you can look back on it and just go, yeah, that was then, this is now, and my life is better as a result of Scientology not being in it. And as we covered in our earlier episodes, Geoff has a lot of more history in Scientology than what we covered. That's why I was trying to keep it to the read. I mean, because
I
there's a
know.
lot there, right? And we covered. I mean, I think it's 3 or 4 parts, right? So I will again encourage everybody to go check that out. But for this new movie
Yeah.
coming out, let's talk about this for a second. Now, you said it's played in some film festivals. So, what's the release, and where can people go see this and when?
Okay, I'm keeping my fingers crossed. The QC on it, quality control, is like devastating. The little minutia and details that they. So we pushed it back at what? So we're looking at now March 24th. It will be available on iTunes, Apple, and Amazon first. And then I have a feeling, depending on the support we get from it, it could then go to another bigger platform.
Right.
But those
Great.
are the distributors. I really like them, the guys I'm working with, the distributors. and I'm going to promote the hell out of it. So that's why I want us to do, we can do more interviews because we have a lot more topics to cover that I'd like to cover.
Yes.
Um, and
Yes.
they won't be about me. They'll be about our, what we see in revelations and stuff that we've had
That's great.
about Scientology. But so March 24th, Apple, Amazon, and
Excellent.
it's 83 minutes. And we really did it so that it moves, I think
Mm.
it tells a story. There's a lot to say. I think we've covered as much as we could so it's not confusing
Mhm.
for someone who knows nothing about it.
Mhm.
And it's not per se an attack. It's
No,
our
it's a
story.
story. It's a story. I mean, obviously, Scientology does, kind of deserves to be attacked, but that's not the point of the film. And
No.
I think that's key in that. I mean, what I saw, and I remember, seeing, if not the whole thing, certainly a lot of it, because there were parts that, I mean, I cried. I mean, I was like, damn, this is really, really good. I believe I saw the whole thing, and I was really hit right in the feels by it. It's powerfully put together, and so I can't recommend it enough to folks.
Well, I think it has a universal message that I didn't think about. I thought about, but it's so prevalent now. It's so in our faces now. What cults can do, what high
Yes,
control, and I call them, they can either be religious leaders or oligarchs, that they create a mentality that is a cult mentality.
I
And
agree.
and so I think it has, if you could be in any other high control group, and hopefully you'll recognize something about the film that resonates, that maybe gives you an idea to look around at what the choice you've made. Because I made the choice, is my choice. It took a long time for me to just finally resolve that. Don't be blaming anybody else on this. You know, of
I
course, does
get it.
that I have to support it or that I can not point the finger at what they're doing wrong. No, but that doesn't mean I blame them. It was my choice.
That's right.
So,
And that's the thing that I think I'm sorry, I cut you off there.
no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that that is the place we finally arrive to as ex-cult members or as members or whatever, is we kind of come to a balance point, right? Yeah, we were victimized. Yes, bad things happened to us. Yes, bad things happened to us that were not our fault. But at the same time, we have to come to reconcile it to see our own contributions to it. We put ourselves there. We believed, we invested, we put the emotions there. And then when people tried to warn us, we told them to fuck off, right? That wasn't Scientology, that was us. And we
Yeah,
have to own that in order to, I think, fully kind of put the door, as you said, close the door on the whole thing, as you can kind of come to this place of not blame, shame, and regret, not how horrible, but finally come to a place where, okay, it happened and it's over now. And I get to move on. And I think for me, that's what recovery means for me, and I think that's what you're kind of voicing here today with this.
well, I'm excited. In the movie, there are two original songs for the film, which I haven't submitted. um, I think maybe I don't think I've submitted them to festivals yet because the film was still in flux. At
Hmm.
the time of the festival, I had a festival cut, but I've added more things into the movie,
Right. Right.
and I'm releasing a soundtrack album with it.
Nice.
There's something like, geez, 15 songs, and some little snippets, but anything that was in the movie that's a song, we're releasing it.
That's
So
awesome.
so we get to do a soundtrack album, and I love. You might not have seen it. I'm not sure if I've sent you the screener on the new cut.
I have not, no, and I want you to, because I'll watch it absolutely.
I'll send you
Um,
this.
Yeah.
because in the old movie there was a good song, but it wasn't totally appropriate for the end. My mindset was different. And then I took the song that was earlier in the film, which you did hear, I put it at the end, and wow, emotionally, when you're watching the credits, it works so well.
You get the callback effect. Nice. I will definitely check that out. Definitely.
And I love the song. I collaborated with a friend of mine who's a Mormon, so he understands and he did an incredible job. I mean,
Interesting.
we
Well, that's
working.
fantastic.
And then I'm also another thing. I'm going to release this in March, the album Chapter 8 of Celestial Navigations.
Oh, wow.
It's been
Oh,
in the works.
wow.
I wanted to do it with Jeffrey when he was alive, and then Jeffrey Lewis, and then when he died, it was kind of a real loss for me because
Yeah.
we were good friends.
He was a good man, as I understand things. I
Oh,
don't
he
think there
was.
was anything wrong with him at all. You've seen him in movies, by the way, with Clint Eastwood and stuff. He's been in a
Yeah, yeah.
ton of
All the
things.
movies like Every Which Way But Loose. He was the comic relief. He was good.
Yes, he
He was
was.
really
He could be very funny. He was a good actor. He had a lot of range.
Well, he's an amazing stage actor, and that's where we performed. And
Nice. That's right.
performed
That's
everywhere.
right.
I met him at Celebrity Center. At the time, he had no real credits, but I saw him on stage and said, I got to work with that guy. And
Wow.
we did. And then we formed, and for people who don't know Celestial Navigations, just go on YouTube, put in my name or Jeffrey's name, Jeffrey Lewis, and put in Celestial Navigations. We're all over the place because we charted on Billboard. I mean, we were mainstream radio and everything.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I'm going to release the last album that we were working on.
That's
So
great.
2 albums. And on the soundtrack, I've got people that I was involved with, some bonus cuts that I'd recorded in 1977, 78.
Damn.
So it's I think it's a fun album. I mean,
Wow.
it's kind of funky because you know what the recording was like then, or, but it's
A little
still
different. Yeah, a little bit
a little
different.
different. So anyway, those are all going to be hitting at the same time. And then I'm trying to think if there's anything. Those are the main things I think, other than I'm really going to step up my presence in social media, especially working with people like you and Tony
Right.
and Claire and
Yes. Yeah. Aftermath.
supporting that.
Great.
Because
Great.
I will have to say, just I did the music theme for Mark and Claire. I wrote that. So I reversed, I did the music for Dianetics, which put it on the map, and that's what feels horrible.
Yes, I get that. I get it. And I'm really glad you're doing what you're doing now. I'm just going to say that because you're a talented, talented person. And that was never the problem. The way that Scientology took advantage of that is the problem, not your talent or skill or what you did with it. And I think that kind of stuff, when it comes to the arts, especially, that kind of stuff needs to be said out
Well,
loud.
we got to talk. I have so much point of view on Scientology and the arts.
Yes, we have another show coming, folks, and we're going to be
Yeah.
going over something that I have not ever seen one podcast, one show. I hardly ever even see it talked about online in comment
Exactly.
sections and forums, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to do a whole show about it, and
Oh
it's a
yeah.
Scientology thing, and
Well,
I'm not even going to say what it is. I'm just going to tell you guys it's coming, and Jeff and I are
yeah.
going to get together.
And if people like it, we'll do more because it's a broad subject.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. There's a lot to talk about, but it has to do with Scientology and the arts, and
Oh,
it's like I said, it's a whole aspect of Scientology that exists but is barely talked about by ex-Scientologists or out in the world. So I look forward to doing that. We're going to dive into some Hubbard stuff and culture, Scientology culture stuff, and go a bit more into some of that Yvonne stuff as well. So I think it's going to be an interesting talk. But today, I want to encourage all of you to bookmark again the date
March 24th is the day it's supposed to drop. That's when the distributor said we have specific days when they come out. We're looking at March 24th. I'll let you know if there's any change. I'm hoping, keeping my fingers crossed, that we get the minutia got down to single frames of video. Oh, you have
I
free
hear you. I hear you. Yeah.
That it goes through. If it goes through, then we have the poster that was done by an ex-Scientologist staff. She did a really good job. And then Mitch is helping me with editing other stuff, promotions for the movie. Mitch Brisker,
Right.
really talented guy, director and editor. He's just excellent. And so, and today I dropped, for those of you who follow me on Facebook, I dropped another song. And it's a video that I did with, I don't know if you know Roz Cohen. She's pretty outspoken, ex-Scientologist, good, talented actress, singer.
Nice. Awesome.
So she sang the song, helped me produce it. We did it down and dirty, vertical, right? It's just a vertical, but it's a music video, and we had a great time with it. And it has nothing to do with Scientology, but I think it's relevant. So,
awesome.
So we did that today, and I know there'll be more videos, because one thing that I would want to say, if you're in a high control group, I don't care who's watching, who you're, I just want to say it to anyone, whether it's a family or anything, it's so hard to create when you're in that environment, to be a creator.
Yes.
It's just, and what I've observed across all of these these countries that are like dictatorships, and these certain religious groups and certain other types of groups where they're really repressive and high control, you don't see any art coming out of it. You don't.
Nope.
And so despite that, art was, and my music was so important. It actually what kept me sane. When I would go into that environment, not lock the door, but shut the door with my computer and my instruments and start writing. It was and I never connected that was so important to even staying halfway sane in Scientology. It wasn't what they were giving me, their special bridge that takes you supposedly to higher levels. But I thought that's what it was, and I tried to connect them. They didn't connect.
Right. That makes sense. That makes total sense. How would somebody reach out to you if they wanted to contact you directly?
They can go to, the easiest way is just go to geofflevin.com.
Great.
And you can just put in the contact, and I will get back to you.
Excellent. Well, you can see the address right there on the screen under Geoff there, and I will also put that in the description section below on YouTube in this video. So, all right, Geoff, well, I want to thank you again for taking the time today to share with us and tell us about all of this stuff. And I will be releasing this shortly before the movie comes out so that people have a heads up on it, but not too much of a heads up that they forget about it. And we will see if we can help boost this thing. Geoff, again, thank you very much. And folks out there, Thanks for coming around and watching and listening to us blabber on at a mad rate. And if this channel and if my show and if all of this is helping you in some fashion, I would very much appreciate some support my way via Patreon or whatever. It's always helpful and always helps keep the lights on and the show going because this is all fan funded by you guys. This is my work. And of course, I will also remind everybody if you are looking for any one-on-one consultation or assistance, you are a family or friend of somebody who's in Scientology or in a destructive cult, you don't know what to do, you don't know how to talk to them, you have questions, I'm here. I'm more than happy to help you with all of those things. So you can always reach out to me via the website or via the contact information below. All right. So that all being said, I'll see you guys next week.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much for having me.